Hello, wonderful second graders of Canyon Room Academy. It's Mrs. Richards, your art teacher. I sure miss you. Can't wait to see you and excited to learn a little bit of art today. So, as most of you will remember, we just finished up learning about all of our elements of art. So we learned about line, shape, form, space, texture, value, and color. Now we're all done with our elements of art, and those are all the basic building blocks that you can do any kind of art with. So now we're going to learn about something kind of different than the elements of art we've been working on. We're going to learn about different styles of art. So if you have a little notebook or piece of paper and you want to take some notes, that would be great. If not, that's okay. Just lock it into your brain and remember the things that sound interesting to you. So today we're going to talk about realism versus abstract art. Now, I bet you can tell from the name what realistic or realism style of art is about. Look at the picture behind it. Does it look like real life? Does it look like 3D? Does it look almost like a photograph that's so realistic? That's what realism is. The goal is to make it look super realistic, almost like real life. And it's easy to remember. Just look at the first few letters of the word real. It looks real. Now, when we talk about abstract art, we don't want it to look realistic. We don't care about it looking realistic. We want to express ideas and emotions. We want to use the different elements of art in interesting and creative ways that just look cool to the artist. So they don't worry about making it look real. They just want to explore art and ideas. Okay, so let's do a mini little quiz to start off, shall we? So I'm going to read one of these items, and you think in your brain, or you can even say out loud or write in your notebook, whether you think that's talking about realism or abstract art. Okay, the first one is more detail. Which one would have more detail, realistic art or abstract art? If you said realistic art or realism, you're right. Now, it's not always the case, but it's usually the case. More detail would be realism. What about simpler? Simple shapes, simple colors. That's right, it'd be more abstract. Okay, what about the goal of this kind of art is to look like a photograph? Realism. Okay, the goal of this kind of art is to express a style, emotion, or idea. Yep, abstract art. Now, can realistic art express a style or an emotion or an idea? Sure, it can, but that's not one of the main points of it, right? So these don't apply to every single one, but this is a good kind of guide to get you guessing which one's which. Okay, now, often older paintings would be this style, before cameras were invented. This one's a little trickier. What do we think? Older paintings made before cameras were invented were often realism. Now, why is that? Why would that be? Before cameras were invented, how would you know what an animal on the other side of the globe looked like? Or how would you remember a loved one who went off on a journey and you couldn't see them? Remember, you couldn't have a picture of them. So a lot of artists wanted their artwork to look very realistic so that it would act in the same way that photographs act for us now, as ways to remember people, to what they looked like, as ways to learn new information about things that they could never actually see in their real life. Okay, now, so if we follow that logic, often newer paintings would be what kind of style? After we made cameras and we didn't need artists to try to make things look like photographs anymore. That's right. Abstract art got really popular after cameras were invented. because artists could explore other things than just capturing the exact likeness of something. Okay, what about artwork that looks three-dimensional with light, shadows, and complex colors? That's right, often realism. What about art that looks a little more flat, bright, solid colors, patterns, and lines? Abstract. Okay, so hopefully you guys are kind of getting the idea. Let's go through and look at some examples. Okay, here's a print of a painting done by John James Audubon. Audubon, that name might sound a little familiar to you. He did lots of paintings of birds. And would this be considered a realistic painting of a bird or more of an abstract painting of a bird? Do we see shadows, color? Does it look 3D? Do we know exactly what it is when we look at it? That's right, it's a realistic painting of a flamingo. Let's contrast that with an abstract painting of a flamingo. Does that look like real life? Have you ever seen a flamingo look like that in real life? If you have, I want to know where you saw that, because that would be one crazy looking flamingo. Now, there's not one that's better than another. I just want to make sure you guys understand that. Realistic art and abstract art, one isn't better than another because it looks more realistic. It's just different. And so different of us can like the realistic one, different of us can like the abstract one. And it all just depends what we like, how we feel, what we think looks cool at that time. So let's look at more examples. Okay, here's a painting by Paul Klee called Fire in the Evening. Now, if I hadn't have told you that this was a painting of fire in the evening, would you have known that for sure? Probably not, because this is an abstract painting. The artist here, what elements of art was he using? Line, color, pattern. That's right. So he was exploring different elements of art, creating an abstract work that he didn't worry too much if everyone knew exactly what it was. He was just exploring art through these different elements and made a beautiful abstract painting. Here's one that you recognize from our hallway. We have The Gleaners by Jean-Francois Millet. What would we say? Is this realistic or abstract? Let's think about the different ways that we would know. Is it detailed? Yeah, pretty detailed. Does it almost look like a photograph? It looks so much like real life. Yeah, it does. And so this is realism. And we know exactly what's happening in this picture, even if it doesn't tell us in the title, because it's pretty realistic. How about this one? I bet you guys all guessed pretty quickly that this is an abstract work of art by Kandinsky. And this is called On White 2. So even from the title, he doesn't want us to know exactly what this means or represents or what it's a picture of. Because of the abstract nature of it, it's not as important as the colors and the emotions. How does this painting make you feel? It's pretty exciting, right? Pretty interesting, has a lot of energy. Those are the things the artist cares about. All right, here's another one by Albrecht Dürer called Young Hare. Did you guys all know this was a rabbit? Yep, because it's realistic. Look at all of those little tiny hairs on the rabbit. Very realistic painting. And the year it was done, 1502, way before there was cameras, right? So if someone wanted to know what a rabbit looked like in a certain part of the world, well, that was part of the artist's job, is making it look very realistic so everyone could see. Here's another painting of an animal by Paul Klee. It's called Cat and Bird. Realistic or abstract? Pretty abstract, that's right. We can see that there's a bird and a cat, and we can probably guess that. So it's not as abstract as some others, but it's still very abstract because the colors are not realistic, the shapes are not realistic, but they're beautiful. And the artist just wanted to explore lines and colors And I think they did so beautifully. Now, let's look at these three paintings by the same artist, okay? These are three self-portraits. That a self-portrait means that an artist paints a picture of themselves. A self-portrait by Pablo Picasso. Okay, now, remember what I told you about how sometimes older paintings are more realistic and newer ones are less realistic? That's not always the case, but it's a good rule of them. So let's look at these three paintings. One of these paintings he painted when he was 15. Which one do you think it is? One of these paintings he painted when he was 25. Which one might be the 25-year-old one? And one of these paintings he painted of himself when he was 89. Which one would that be? Okay, I want you all to guess. Make your guess right now, and then we'll show the answers and talk about it. Okay, here we are. So the one on the left, that gray, very abstract one, he painted when he was 89. The one in the middle, that's a little bit more realistic, painted when he was 15. And that one on the right, that's pretty abstract too, but maybe a little more realistic than that first one, he painted when he was 25. Isn't that interesting how his style changed during his lifetime and how he started out painting more realistically, and then as he developed through his art career, went more and more abstract. It's pretty cool, right? Which one do you guys like the most? Tell me which one you like the most. I like them all for different reasons.